Good evening and welcome to the FY26 budget hearing and January 30th school committee meeting. We're going to conduct the budget hearing first. We'll hear a presentation from Dr. Marsden and his team. Then the school committee will comment or ask questions about the presentation. After that, we'll open it up to the public for any questions or comments in person and online. We'll then close the budget hearing and the school committee will vote to accept the budget, and then we'll move on to our business meeting. So at this time, I'd like to open the FY26 budget hearing with a roll call of the school committee. Michelle Kirkby here.
Tim Knight here. Leo Brim here.
Diana Priscilla here.
Bill Horn here.
Thank you, Dr. Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present the FY26 budget. Once we go through, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know that they usually come up at the end of the meeting with different items. We did try to send out our new budget flip book, so the entire community got that. It was the parents got an email to them, and then it was on our website as well. So just some important background information as we go through the presentation. The superintendent is the budget officer. The three general areas of responsibility for the superintendent as budget officer will be the budget preparation, budget presentation, and the administration of the budget. Tonight's budget is called Superintendent's Recommended Budget. There's no official FY26 budget until the school committee votes that tonight or this evening. If the budget is voted tonight and is submitted to the town, is obviously not necessarily the final budget. We have a few months to kind of work on that. Changes can still be made, and the organization and line item of chart of accounts are assigned by DESI. So as we go through this, sometimes things don't really make a lot of sense, but we have to follow the DESI chart of accounts as we go through this process. Some important budget terms as we go through. Chapter 70 funds, those are the state funds earmarked for education. Those are sent directly to the town of Medfield. We do not get those directly. Circuit breaker is a state reimbursement for special education costs. Those do come directly to the district. Our collective bargaining, or CBA, those are our contracts with our teachers, teacher assistants, custodians, secretaries, and cafeteria workers. We are currently negotiating with Unit B, our teacher assistants, as of today. Steps, lanes, percent of increase, and longevity, that's the pay structure that are in our CBAs. So a step is a yearly increase on the salary grid. Lanes are an increase based on degree attainment. And this year, we've had the most horizontal moves or lane moves we've ever had. We have 43 this year, which is a lot. So you can see how that plays into the budget a little bit later. Percent increase is the amount added to the base, which is your COLA. And then longevity is a bonus that folks get when for accrued time in Medfield. FTE is your full-time equivalent. Full-time employee or a fraction of full-time, and level service budget is same people, same programs. Aside from a few of the positions you'll see in here this evening that we'd like to add, we're essentially a level service budget in FY26. And then our capital budget is separate from our operating budget, and it's typically the larger purchases of 5 years or more, which we have a slide on that going over what our school department priorities are for FY26. The structure will be our mission statement, our budget timeline. We'll go into the process, the assumptions, and the drivers, some of our strategic initiatives, student enrollment, which obviously plays a big role in this, our budget offsets and revenue. So what we typically get over $3 million in budget offsets and revenue that we supplement our budget with. Our FY26 analysis of how we stack up against surrounding towns. And then our capital then going forward is going to be to have always like to frame what we do with our budget around our mission statement. This is the mission statement we developed with our new strategic plan that the Medfield Public Schools in partnership with families and the community, fostering safe, inclusive learning environment, empowering our students to be high standards, adapt to change, and become responsible and contributing members of society. And also our core values at the bottom of the page. You'll see those throughout our presentation. So our budget timeline is similar as it's been in previous years. It started in October with the warrant committee giving the preliminary guidance to us, and you'll see that submission of budgets going into November. Our annual budget, initial budget, in December. We always do that in the first week of December, and then we go to our submission of our budget after the public hearing in January, and we'll not meeting the 5th. One of the things that we always like to highlight is the process is we have Michael and I had 21 budget meetings this year, meeting with the directors and our department chairs for requests. So that has always been a really good process in which we try to look at a zero-based process in which we ask people what they need, and then they tell us what they need to build a budget based on that. So the assumptions that we did going into FY26, that our federal entitlement grants would be level funded. That was kind of interesting this week when they were frozen and then rescinded 2 days later. So we're still planning on those entitlement funds will be there for FY26. Chapter 70 will be increased by 178. That's the biggest increase we've seen in years here, and that's the governor's budget. That's the first one that's out right now. You know that the House and the Senate will also put their budgets together, but we start at a 178 increase. We get about 63,000 of an increase. That's a great start for us. We have a continuation reduction of our tuition full day kindergarten. So we, as you know, we are moving toward a transition of no fee-based kindergarten for all students in Medfield. This is year one of that, and you'll see how that impacts our budget as we go through. And circuit breaker, we funded 75%. We have a belief that circuit breaker will be at least 75%. That's what the statutory is, and they're including more transportation in that this year. We're looking forward to that. As I always say, I've seen as low as 42% in some years. With 75 has really been a great way to offset our costs in tuition and transportation. Our budget drivers are no different than any other school district in Massachusetts. Personnel, number one, always 80+% of your budget is personnel. Technology, transportation, and services. You'll see how that plays out as we go through the presentation. Existing staff, this is what causes the 4.1%, 4.7% increase as we go through. Again, it's always staffing. That's the majority of our budget. You can see the teachers, steps, lanes, instead of increase in longevity, there's an increase of 1.2 million in FY26. You'll see that the paraprofessionals goes down 38, and that's just a mechanism of us moving more paraprofessionals into a grant and revolver. It's not a increase in paraprofessionals at all. And then all other staff within our district is 188,000 increase. The new positions that we have here, we're not adding 2 kindergarten teachers to our staff. We're just moving from a revolving account into the operating budget. That's usually 149. Behavior therapist at Memorial. 0.3 speech therapist at Medfield High School, so making a part-time person full-time in that role. And then adjustment counselor at Dale Street. That the request for that was at 1.0. We're going to look at funding at 0.5 for that position. That's an increase of 312,000. And then other expenses, look at your supplies, other materials, technology, special education out of district. You'll see that's gone down 179,000, but that is due to students that will be aging out of the program, but it's still a big budget driver for us. Regular transportation and out of district transportation, both you see increases of 64,000. So the total budget change for FY25, 1.7 million, almost 1.8 million, based on those numbers. So looking at strategic initiatives in FY26, full day kindergarten, talked about school safety. Always a priority, technology a priority, increased communication, that's something that we need to plan. So embedded in this budget, we're looking at doing a new universal communication that we can use for teachers talking to parents, us communicating to other folks. It's going to be kind of a one-stop shop for communication, and we're looking at that right now. Professional development, we always prioritize that for our staff. And then facility improvements our capital budget, which will go through the presentation. Student enrollment, you'll see that we do the NSDEC projections every year. We partner with NSDEC, and they provide us both fall and spring numbers. This is based on the fall numbers, and what they do is take our Program 1 and their methodology as they go through and look at live births in the community, and that's part of their methodology. We look at the projections. So you'll see that we're not increasing a lot, but we do have some increases in certain grade levels. The one that I will point to that we're talking about and planning on FY27, that kindergarten class is 233 in the following year and 242 in first grade. So we've had these numbers before that have never been this high, but we've had higher numbers in kindergarten, high numbers in kindergarten, Sometimes they come to fruition, sometimes they don't. But those are based on kids that are living in right now, and sometimes we know that parents will keep their kids back, as we sometimes call it redshirting, their kids in kindergarten and bring them into first grade. So, we're planning on that because that can be an increase of 2 or 3 classrooms for 2 years out of a single level. So we're planning on that, and we'll see how it materializes in FY27. I know that we have talked a lot about what the new school was scheduled to open this year, this current year. And you see that we went in at a 450 asking for, and it was under 400. And 450 would have served us pretty well for the next 5 years for sure. So we'll see what happens this time in MSBA. We're hoping that it's a number that makes sense to both the community and the school district. High school still remains. We still have a couple of small classes going through here. It's still under 800 for the next few years. High school. All this drives kind of what we need for staffing and what our budget numbers say. There's a picture of that. Same thing. So looking at our offsets, one of the things that we're really good about here is trying to get as much as we can for revolving accounts, revenue generation, and grants, and offsetting our operating budget, and being really clear about that. So you'll notice that special education circuit breaker, we're looking at $685,000 projected revenue, and that goes completely to tuitions for outside placement for students outside placement. Our preschool and kindergarten revolving accounts, you'll see most of that goes to professional salaries. The other salaries will be looking at our professional teaching assistant. Athletics, if it goes out, program athletics, we're projecting 332 going in and 331 going out. Building use, we tend to carry a little bit of money there, but we pay a lot out of overtime when we do rentals on the weekend. We have to pay custodians to be there, so a lot of that goes to that money. Parking fees at the high school, high school at the younger grades. Music lessons is another one that we have where you see most of the money that comes in goes right out. Before and after school care, not a lot collected in terms of revenue in that we may see a change in that depending on what happens with Matthew Borough after or before school. With the time change, we're still working with that a little bit, but we may see that revenue go up. Yeah, school capacity we use in health after school and all other schools after kids work. And then our school lunch, I know you had a presentation on that at the last school committee meeting. A lot of that money goes to our salaries and for supplies and services that come out of the food service program. Our projected grants for FY26, you'll see that the biggest one for us is 240 special ed or 94142. That is $674,000, which we pay all of our teaching assistants out of. And then some of the other smaller grants we pay some staff on as well. The biggest one you'll see at the bottom, Chapter 70, and a little over $7 million from the state. Again, that's the money that is earmarked for education over $13,000 and 678 over respective. So that's what we do. The whole thing continues to go up. Typically, it goes up a little. The second rendition, and then somewhere in the middle of the third thing. Looking at a summary of the entire district and all of our areas. So this looks at both the increase for the budget, but also the FTEs and gives you any variances in what we have for FTEs. So if you look at Memorial School, you see a change of $370,000. Remember, 2 of those positions. A big part of that change was kindergarten teachers going back into the budget instead of being revolving now. So you look at the FTEs at 51.5, with the variance being 3, so that's one position in the budget, and that's the 2 kindergarten people going back into the budget. And these are mostly all of these changes and increases are based on salary increases for UNA, go across. No change in their rates for Wheelock, 175,000 increase. Dale Street at 288, we had a 0.5 change in there, and staffing increase. Lake Middle at 233 with a 0 increase in staffing. High school at 346 with a 0.3. District services, student services, policy administration, 0 on the variance. We'll see the variance increase 169, 85, 120, all adding up to a 1.797 number for the 4.17. of Jesse when they asked us to put those together. We should have been a different way. So one of the things we wanted to do by function this year is look at a 2-year projection. So as part of our planning that we do internally, we do projections for a couple of years internally, but we actually never shared it publicly. So we thought that would be a good idea to start sharing that publicly, so people can work to see what we're thinking in terms of what costs would be. We used a certain methodology with that, like GQ, how we use methodology to get to that. We looked at what the averages are going to be in those certain areas. So with district leadership, we looked at we tried to establish what those percentages might be as we went through. So we put a 3% increase on district leadership for FY27 and FY28. For instructional services, we looked at the average for instructional line items for teachers. Average over the last few years has been a 5% increase. So we added 5% FY27 and FY28. We looked at other student services. The average has been 4.02, so we added 4.5 just to be safe for those 2 years. Operations and maintenance was a 1.43% average. We added 2.7%. Fixed charges 5.75. We added 2.7% FY27 and 28. We did the same for replacement of assets. And then with programs, we added what the state has been increasing out of district replacement at 3.67%. So by using that methodology over those 2 years, that's how we got to the numbers that you see. So are those numbers bigger than what we expected? They probably are. But we wanted to give the warrant committee and the community a sense of what we're looking at for increases in the next couple of years. So looking at the 4.17%, the 2 FTE kindergarten for the revolving account, the 1.0 full-time equivalent BCBA board certified behavior analyst at Memorial, 0.5 adjustment counselor at Dale, increases to our instructional software and software licenses, increase to cost of living, steps, lanes, longevity, increase to transportation, both general and special ed, and then supply and services. So essentially, take the first 3 bullets out, and we're looking at a level service budget. Here's our current budget gap with the warrant committee. Right now, we're at 251 is our budget gap. It's on us at 3.6. When again, we're at 4.17. So this is what work we need to do the next couple of months to make sure that we make it to their guidance and their guidelines and close that gap. So each year we have positions that are requested, recommended, but don't make their range recommended budget. I just think that last line is really important. Even though they're not funded in FY26, the need doesn't go away. So I think going from the bottom to the top, instructional coaches, I think we're being asked for these for probably 10 years, 8 to 10 years. We talk about instructional coaches all the time. It's something that we think we need in the district that other districts have that we don't. I know that there were school committee members in the past that said, we have one thing we want, that's the position we want for the instructional coaches, really important thing for districts to have. I think we're going to get there at some point, but we did not include in FY26. 0.4 wellness teachers in high school, 22 math specialists in Lake Middle, and again, those are making people whole that maybe are part-time. Right now, ability sub perennial ask from that link. 0.3 reading specialists we are, math specialists at Dale, and the other 0.5 adjustment counselor at Dale that was asked for funded the 0.5. Those are positions that we think are really important that should be in our budget, but we had to make some tough decisions for version of our budget. Purchasable expenditure is always a good conversation to have. To see where we stand as far as this. You look at surrounding towns, we're at 19,960. Dedham is actually moved up to the top of the area. They're at 26.6 per student. but you'll see we're just a hair above Medway, and Mills is just a hair above us. So that's kind of where we stand. You can be right, you can find all that stuff on the website. That's linked to. And this is also what people want to talk about as well. So the state average is 21,000. We're at 9. The state average, we have to increase our budget by $3.4 million. So think about it that way, that we're still under budget. We're also generating revenue and grants of over $3 million, but we could add another $3.4 million if we just spent the state average. So our school department capital budget priorities for FY26, you'll see these are all building-based capital issues that we're trying to rectify. At the high school, looking at electrical upgrades, the building envelope, so looking at repointing brick, doors, windows, that kind of thing. Medfield outreach work, that's on the town side, but the town asked us to include that on ours because it's happening at our school, but that is a town capital priority. We replaced some flooring in the high school, HVAC improvements and repairs, and miscellaneous site work. The same thing at Blake with the site work, the building envelope, flooring replacement, interior improvements, HVAC repairs. Both Dale Street and Wheelock have the type of floors that have asbestos in them, so we need to do abatement in both of those. So whenever we replace flooring in either Dale Street or Wheelock, we need to factor the abatement. Like see it increases a lot in terms of the cost. And then moving at HVAC upgrades, repairs, and flooring at Memorial. And then we're going to continue. We did half of the high school lawn with paving. We'd like to finish that off for next summer. We're close to the DPW on that. We try to do a couple of jobs with them so that the price goes down. That's worked out really well for us this year. So the total request is $1.1 million. And the big thing is, that's kind of hanging over our head as a community, is that we need to have new roofs and floor on our buildings. So when this building and Blake switched, they put high school, middle school, and they redid all that. They didn't put new roofs on them at the time, so the roofs are way past their useful age at this point. The same thing with Memorial. When that was redone, it would stay the same. And then Wheelock actually has an old roof that has ballast on it, so there's rocks all on top of that. So we need to, put more rubber membrane to let us more modern way of doing it in schools now. So all that together is $19 million. Obviously, we can't do that all at once. So what we would like to do at some point in the coming years, 1 to 2 years, is once we get going with the Dale Street project, we can do the accelerated repair program and SBA apply for that. In order of priority, Blake number 1, get that roof done first. Some of it's been done already, but we need to replace that. We're doing a lot of patchwork on that. So that would be something that we would have in our budget priority for capital the next few years. But that would probably be, we got to kind of work with the town on this because at some point, hopefully, we're going to be going over the town for the school for Dale Street. We need to kind of figure out what the best way to do that is with roofs and work with MSB on that. So those are some of the big things that are going on in payroll. So going forward, we have school committee meetings on the 13th of February, 13th of March, and the 27th of March. Warrant committee is scheduled for February 11th, and then our final budget and town meeting. We go through, and there's some that I can't, Michael will certainly hear. We have over 100 items, so if I don't know it, he does. Yeah.
What's a building envelope, Dr. Martin?
So that's everything outside doors, windows, any of the soffits, any of that stuff. Get repointing brakes, all that. So you can just do that outside of the building. And there's a whole list of things that can be done.
Gotcha. And I just had one other question on the 2 instructional coaches that were around 248. Is that 2 salaries?
Yes. Yes. What we did, we figured when we did that, we looked at what a top step teacher with experience would be. We took that number and just multiplied it times 2. We figured that someone's going to come out of the classroom very early or so. They're going to be paid up to that level at some point. So that's why we got that 248. I think top step is 124.
I had a few, I'm going to check in a minute, but just, is it gap in the per pupil expenditure compared to the state? I haven't looked. Were we always to that degree?
We're actually better than we
Yeah.
It used to be a huge gap years ago. So yeah, we closed that gap. We're just always chasing the average. We've never made it to the average, but we're certainly better than we used to be. I mean, it just depends who you talk to. I mean, I think we're getting better and better, but people might not think it's getting better. They might like it the other way as well.
I want to thank you and your team for putting together the digital flip book. I felt like that was an easier way for the community to kind of get a better understanding of the budget process. So thank you guys for putting that together and getting that out there. My question is around, I feel like there was some confusion this week on like a federal level around finance and budgets. I was also reading a report today that Senator Markey published in 2017 that discussed the fiscal impact on Massachusetts under this administration. So I guess my question is, what concerns do you have, if any, on losing any sort of federal funding going forward? And do we have any sort of safeguards or any way to like prevent grants from being lost?
Yeah, I think the big thing that I worry about is the 240 or 94142 that grant, because it's a federal development grant, so it's based on a formula that we get, that every community here gets in the state of Massachusetts. And as you can see, we pay almost all of our teaching systems on that. So we're going to lose $600,000 or $700,000. I'm not so sure how to do that. We have to pass it. Either the state has to remove it, which I don't agree with, or we have to pass it on to the budget or just make it one pass. So I worry about that. I mean, some of the other ones, sometimes we qualify for Title I, sometimes we don't. It all depends. We've had years where we've gotten Title I, and we've gotten years we've planned on it, and we get an email in July saying you don't qualify for Title I. So we're kind of on that cusp of a district where sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So that would, that certainly helps out when we get it. And some of the other ones are a lot smaller, but that 240 is critical to us.
And what about any concerns on federal funding impacting future state funding, on like our Chapter 70 money or anything like that?
Yeah, that could happen. I feel like, the reason why our number is up a little bit this year is that the governor decided to dip into millionaires tax in part of her budget presentation, which was great because I think when it was passed, it was sold on education and transportation. And then in the fine print, it was higher education. That's where it went, right? So the first couple of years went to higher ed. Now it's coming to us, which I think is great. So that would be a great safeguard for Massachusetts that they have that. So I don't see that as an issue impacting the local or the state. It's more of those federal entitlement grants that we all get. I mean, if we get the size of us, if we get almost 700,000, imagine what the cities get on that. So everyone counts on it.
Right.
So it's a big chunk of money for everyone each year. So that would be a big problem if that went away.
At our December meeting, the preliminary budget was at a 5.89 increase, and now we're at 4.17. Can you talk a little on how you got the number down a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things that during this process, right, in the months from December to now, we get a little more clarity on certain things, like for instance, special education. We get a good sense of what that's going to be going forward. We start to get clarity on how much we need for technology and computers. It just becomes really clear because when we do that first one, we're taking all of the requests from the principals and the directors and the department heads, and we're putting it all in there together. And that's why it gets so large in the beginning. And then we try to go through and whittle that down a little bit. So we try to prioritize, have conversations, and then get that number down to what it needs to be, which at 251, we still need to do that again. I thought we were going to be in pretty good shape, but 4.17 is not terrible. It's a manageable increase, but I think if we want to hit that target, we need to do a little bit more discussion. And again, once the clarity starts coming in with what we need for FY26 as far as staffing, as far as tuitions, those kinds of things, then we'll have a better idea. So it just takes a little. It's weird because you start this in October and you're doing it for next July, and a lot of things happen in that time. So you have to make adjustments and pivot when you can. But that's what we're going to be doing next few weeks.
Okay. Understanding that we continue to have a wait list for the preschool, do we have any sort of sense on the revenue being missed by not being able to offer preschool to everyone who wants it?
A lot. Yeah, I mean, I think we still have pretty good numbers on that wait list, and I think the preschool WheeLock has been a huge success. Those kids are part of that culture, part of that school. They love it, and it was great that they could loop together the 3 and 4-year-olds, which is awesome to have them for 2 years. So we're planning on doing the same thing next year. We have a 3 and 4-year-old, 3-year group loop into a 4-year group. But we'd like to have additional space. The problem that Missy and I were just talking about this week is when we look at that big group for kindergarten. That's a big group coming in there too. We're trying to fit more in a really confined space of Memorial for our room there. So we have to start looking at other spaces in there to try to be creative with the classroom. But yeah, it depends on what program people would take. If they took a full 4-day or a 3-day or a half day, but a substantial amount of revenue for this.
Okay.
We'll get a dent in it though, adding the WheeLock.
Yeah. Okay. And then you mentioned that some of the things in the budget that you wish would be here were like the instructional coaches, and I think we did see some repeats and asks that weren't fulfilled. Do you have an idea on those, I guess, the asks from last year that weren't fulfilled, and then also the asks from this year that weren't fulfilled? Like, is there any sort of like, this is something that we've been trying to get for, I think we talked about the Blake sub last year was one of the things we talked about. So do we have any sense of like, this has been asked for 5 years and we still can't fund it, right? Like, or any sort of sense on the asks in that space?
Yeah, so I think if we go back to that slide, the wellness teacher, one of the high school was a reduction that happened a couple of years ago. They just want to come back to make whole again. The building sub at Blake is certainly something we've asked for. I know that model's worked really well in other schools. So, we're still looking at that possibly as it all shakes out. That could happen, but we don't know at this point. We didn't know enough now to put it in the actual budget. I would say the math specialists have come up every year, especially the last 5 years. In implementing a new math program, I think having a math specialist that can both work with teachers to support them and with kids would be a great addition. There's nothing up there I wouldn't support. I think it's all really good stuff. Let's just try to make the numbers work.
Do you guys have anything else?
I have a couple.
Okay, go for it.
I was trying to do quick math, and then I think you did it for me. But can you explain, you said regarding the teacher's revolving account and that shift, the term you said was be level, without those first two lines, it would be level service.
Right. So level service is just same people, same programs, right? It's existing from 1 year to the next. So if you take away those first 3 bullets, the budget is essentially level service.
And that's what I did quick math, and it showed like 3%. Like so without that, is it really 4 point, like the 4.17?
We probably hit the target. I think we pick that up.
Yeah, that's where I was going, because I dropped out 1 point, although that seems high. You think
we hit the target if
we'd hit the warrant committee target? So
I think and that's something you guys can make that decision if you want to do that. We wanted to keep true to what the plan was to go towards no cost per day kindergarten. So that was year 1, was putting the teacher there. But if you folks want to put us in a different direction, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I was just more thinking about, to be honest, how we position it. Like that, to me, that's a to a certain degree, it doesn't feel like you're actually asking for the full. We're full. It's not you. Once we vote it, are we really asking for 4.1?
That's a good point.
Like we're doing it's a strategic decision, but it's just an interesting way to look at it. 'Cause no matter what, I see the 256 of what you really want, or roughly 250 of what you really want, and I see another 250 gap of what the warrant committee wants us to hit. And those are both going in the wrong direction. Right. So it just, when my head looked at it, I did that quick math and I came up with, I went from 1.041 to 1.033. And it was just a different way to think about it.
I think as we get closer to, like, if we're looking at, if the gap is persisting into April, I think that's a conversation that we have. How to get it down to that number. That's, if it's still a 250 gap or still whatever that is, then I don't think it will be, but if it is, then we'll have to have that conversation.
Jeff, I guess, which of these positions are directly correlated to gaps that we're trying to fill? Particular, I see reading specialist that we lost. I mean, point three is not a lot to make up in our budget, but how about the math specialist at Dale, right? So are we seeing a dip in math performance? I know overall that, the averages just came out across the state, and I'm not recalling our performance from the recent MCAS performance, but are we asking for that for a specific reason? Is it something we should prioritize?
Yeah, I would say that the principals ask for those just because they feel like, and they're right, that teachers are getting more in those areas and that either additional staffing or existing staff expanded would do a better service to both kids and teachers. So I think that's what it is. And it wasn't a particular, we're targeting that because that's where we're down low, more just holistically understanding that we need more support in those areas, and those positions could do that.
I guess I would ask, is this a prioritized list, or is it, if we ask to prioritize, what would be at the top? Okay.
Yeah.
If we ever were to ask for a prioritized
It would
list.
look different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diana, do you have anything? Will, do you have anything that you want to ask or comment on?
I just want to make sure he's still there.
Mr. Horn?
Will's there. He's on mute.
Okay. All right. At this time, I'd like. Oh, sorry.
Or we can get, I'm okay with the public, and then if we can ask more after.
Or you can go now.
No, why don't we break it up?
Okay. All right. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public to ask any questions or share any feedback around the budget. You can use the mic there. Please state your name and address for the record. If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand, and then Tim will bring you over.
Chris Potts, 7 Curve Street. First, I wanted to just congratulate everyone on that great flip book. It really was excellent. And it was just phenomenal. It was so user-friendly. It was really easy to look at all the numbers. So I just wanted to make sure to recognize that because it was really fantastic.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, sure. And then the other thing I also wanted to acknowledge that the chaos and the confusion of this past week, I do want to acknowledge the stress that probably caused as people were looking at the budget and wondering what's going to happen. So I appreciate that, education's really been worried about that. So I just want to, as a clarification, I really don't have any issues or problem with anything in the budget. It's more a governance question. As a school committee with statutory authority over district finances, I just want to clarify, you're voting just basically adopt the proposed operating and capital budgets tonight, correct? Both of them?
Is that what we usually do? Tim?
This would be the superintendent's recommended budget, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Correct. Yes.
Including
Recommended budget from the superintendent, we would accept that.
I would think that capital priorities, Michael, you guys go to your again?
Not yet.
That's why I'm asking.
I would hold on to the capital.
Because I know in the past the school committee has voted on it, just voted to authorize the capital as well as part of the town charter. It's in there for that vote. The only thing that I was a little confused about is that at the capital budget meetings, $300,000 was approved for school information technology and infrastructure and hardware. It doesn't really mean it comes out of the capital stabilization fund. It really doesn't impact taxpayers all that much because it's coming from a different bucket. It just would seem that in the flip book, that amount should be in there somewhere so people understand that it just seems like it's missing 300.
No, thanks, Chris. We looked at that, and the town actually doesn't consider that school capital when you look at the warrant. It's listed as IT. It's not listed as a school.
Yeah.
So that's why we didn't put it in there, because it's listed as IT.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was.
Dr. Marston, is that because the budget is servicing all buildings, not just schools?
No, it does say school information on the item on the warrant, but when it says department, it doesn't say schools. It says so the school will say school building capital or whatever, and then I think there's a whole section by department, and it says IT, not school. That's why it's not there.
I only ask because I know that the department services the whole the town.
Town and school.
Yeah, and I think so much it's more of a communication about conveying priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And when Medfield Outreach is in there and that's a town project, yet it's in the priorities, it makes complete sense. It's just
it was just because it was building based, not a technology.
Yeah. Okay. And then the only other question I had was with the projected offsets, where's the beginning year's rent? Is that where's that?
That'd be a rental.
Oh, it's in the rental.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can
Yeah.
get back. So building use. Building use. So building use would be
Oh, okay.
that. It would be
Building use / rental.
It would be basketball on the weekends, all this.
Got it. Okay, thanks. And then the only thing I would ask is that it's been said all along, and it's said every year that the budget's going to constantly evolve and change until we get to town meeting. And I would just ask the school committee just to consider taking public input at the meetings at the end of your discussions if there's any significant changes on the budget, and that would be the only thing that I would request for the benefit of the public. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No hands raised online. Anyone online, if you would like to raise your hand and ask any questions?
Nobody's got their hand raised.
You have more questions?
Yeah, I had a couple other questions. One was related to the capital budget. I would have thought I would have seen a higher number because things seem to happen.
Things that happen as they go along. We spent a lot on Dale the last couple of years. In the summertime, redoing ceilings, floors. I think we made it a priority for the last few years. And I think these are the things that really have to get done at this point.
And then when the unexpected happens, that comes out of operating.
Or if it's really, really unexpected, really bad, then we would have to.
Yeah. Okay. So I just I also like, Michelle, kind of where you were going on the kindergarten. When you think about the off, are there other places, strategic services actually also self-funded? It's think about. I don't have an answer to that though. So I had the others. I think, Michelle, you answered it. Even the school lunch that we have now, like you kind of asked about that on the federal. Has anybody talked about losing that program?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I have seen that in things I've read the last few weeks that is on there. So that would be a huge problem for us as well. Because even though the state has allocated free lunch for all kids, K to 12, as kids get their lunch, we submit reimbursements to the federal government. The federal government sends us money, and that's how we pay staff. That's how we buy food. That's how we're upgrading all the kitchens with dishwashers and ovens that have been there forever, as you saw in the last presentation. So, yeah, once again, if that goes away, then we're in trouble again. So, we have to just keep a close eye on that.
Yeah, because that was a pretty big number.
0.5 right now.
Revenue and the offset, that's a big that's a big number, and you can't just, if something did happen, you can't just immediately fix it through staffing. You know,
And 1.5 revenue that we're expecting, and that's pay staff,
so the only, and this is more a conversation for you guys. Like, I feel, and maybe I missed it in years past, but I do feel a little funny when I see, historically what happens is we do everything we possibly can to hit the committee level. That's just the main thing. And so that makes me nervous. And then I see some of these positions that you've asked for years, you know, like areas of math, jump up to instructional coaches, and I just see where things are going, where there's so much energy around helping the kids with mobile and what's going on. That's the only thing that it doesn't feel right to me, that there's a $250K more that we need, and the warrant committee, like, we need, you know, that we're going to be asking you to cut more. So I don't know. That's the only thing I don't feel great about.
Yeah, it's fair.
You know, I think one time, it's like 4 or 5 years ago, we did say to you, Dr. Marsden, if you had another position, could we increase it? And I don't know whether that was before or after. That's just something for us on the committee to think about. And I haven't done this before. What Dr. Marsden could be asking for X, and we could say, no, we don't think we want X. The normal thought is it should be less. That's just corporate America.
Right.
And part of me just wonders should we be saying, no, it should be more?
Then you're still stuck, right?
I know that. I know that. But some of these things we're bringing up aren't going to go away. You know, so Diane, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So it may not matter, but I just feel like it's harder, you know, each year when you ask for some of the things, you can't get it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked for a prioritized list in that list, right? And and flipping the role, I guess, you know, obviously what I do every day, like the expectation is that Dr. will tell us what's important and what we should be fighting for and what's at risk if we don't. What are we not achieving? To your point, Tim, what are we not achieving by getting that 1.0 math? So I'm looking particularly at the specialists, right? Reading and math specialists and our early grades that help us prevent an extra need later on in their academic career through our district. So, you know, by providing, additional support at Memorial, Wheelock, and Dale, what are we saving? You know, how are we accelerating and supporting students sooner as they need it, or identifying those needs sooner by providing those supports ahead of time? So I think that's, and some of those, in my opinion, from a budgetary perspective, were low-lying fruit, if you will, or smaller dollar amounts that we could possibly afford, with a minimal ask in our budget. So I echo the risks of the school lunch program and the other federal supports and what they mean for FTEs in our district. So,
yeah, like I would say, like I was just raise that as a risk. The school lunch, they fall in the category of the things we can't control.
Yeah.
I raised that the level service in 3.03, how you look at it. That one, maybe it's like, I would say, hey, we stay the course, but we may want to have some additional discussions. Because Leo, it could be an offline conversation as we're evolving with the mobile technology task force. The town and some of the community norms we're talking about. The parents need our help from the school. How can you protect them with their devices? And sometimes, like whether it's a coach or an FTE, could help with that. But that also might lead to revenue over time. hey, here's some different services that you can offer. So I have not fully thought this through.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't feel great
Right.
as I think of what some of the ongoing needs are. And I just look at the statistics of the younger
Right.
kids.
With the partnership with Parks and Rec for the summer camp and the school use, is that is that in the projected offset of building use? No. Okay. We don't charge. Okay. And then understanding that this is, I guess, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the second year that the Warren Committee has given us guidelines or guardrails kind of earlier. What's that process been like doing it the second year? Sorry, I stole your question.
I would say it's what Michael and I were both used to in the districts we worked before.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty common practice everywhere.
Okay.
And I hear what you're saying, Tim. I will say that when I speak to my colleagues in the area, we're pretty well supported here. I mean, the community knows that this is what we do here for education, and I think other members of the Warren Committee in years past have said this is our brand, this is what we do, this is our industry in Medfield, is education, and I think we've always been supported well. There are times we've had to go against what the Warren Committee wanted. We've kind of gone back and forth, and but I think they've been very supportive the last few years, and I know that if you just read the paper every day, you see layoffs all over the place, and you see overrides all over the place, and they're trying to work with us. And I think if we continue to work together, we work with the town, it works out better for kids. But I hear you. I'd love to have a few of those positions for sure. And I think it's important for our district and our kids to have some of those other positions that we don't currently have in our budget.
Yeah, no, and I also think, Michelle, there's always thinking, there's other ways to do it. There might be areas that you can find cuts that don't really cost or revenue. But that's just, that's where it strikes me a little funny, because that's actually was the note I put in to myself is, this is, Medfield prides itself in our schools and our education. And then you also look at, it's good to hear that we're getting closer to the state average. So that's positive, but it just part of me says, hey, we can do better.
I don't know. I think it's a great value that we're under the state average for what we provide and how the experience our teachers have here. So,
and I agree. Like even when I came here, I remember thinking that. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So I'm not saying it, but it's just something.
That's the hard part of your job, is really trying to balance what the expectations are in education and excellence and all that with being taxpayers too, right? Because when you look at our budget, and we're getting $7 million for the first time from the state, but the rest of it comes from your real estate taxes, right? And that's not the ratio that many districts have. Many districts have the opposite ratio. So it's a tough thing to balance. I understand why the position you folks are in with that. You want what's best, but you also know that there are taxpayers behind that too. So
I would say, we do represent the schools as a school committee, but we do have some town-wide impacts that will cost the town, that will indirectly impact the schools, like the Parks and Rec scenario that's currently in play with the FAF Center, that's going to impact our school use. And then obviously the Dale Street project, which will directly impact. So there is preparation in the tax base for that as well.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else, either online or here, that has additional questions or comments on anything? No.
I mean, look one more time.
Okay.
Sure. There is. Was that when I was talking?
Well, I mean,
Leo raised his hand.
Apparently
I was asking too many questions. So Leo on Zoom raised his hand.
I can't see who's there.
Oh, okay. Leo, I think, wants to be
45
elevated
people that are on the Zoom
to participate.
All right. Thank you,
Could have
everyone.
just nudged me and said, "Hey."
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to close the FY26 budget hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Will. And then, do I hear a motion to accept the superintendent's FY26 budget as presented? Second. Oh, sorry, we have to do a roll call because Will's online. I'd like to make a motion to close the FY26 budget hearing. Michelle Kirkby, sorry. I'd like to make a motion to close the FY26 budget hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And then we have to say Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tim Knight, yes.
Leo Brem, yes.
Diana Frischella, yes.
Will? Okay, thanks, Will. Do I hear a motion to accept the superintendent's FY26 budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tim Knight, yes.
Leo Brem, yes.
Diana Frischella, yes.
Thanks, Will. We're good? Okay. All right. So that concludes our FY26 budget hearing. We're going to now move on to our main meeting. So at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order with a roll call of school committee members. Michelle Kirkby present.
Tim Knight here.
Leo Brem here.
Diana Frischella here.
At this time, I'd like to open public input. Members of the public are welcome to comment during the public input either here or through Zoom. If you're on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand. We ask that you keep your camera on when making a Zoom comment and that you follow school committee policy for public input, including speaking for no more than 3 minutes and only on topics under the purview of the school committee. And whether you're here in person or on Zoom, please state your name and address for the record. Hi.
My name is Victoria Leah. I live at 5 Elm Street, and I have grandchildren in the Medfield school system. I'm also an educational advocate for Massachusetts, for the state of Massachusetts. I have made some inquiries regarding any notices being sent to parents and guardians in Medfield in reference to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, outlining the Medfield District's responsibilities and protocols. I have not been informed that any information regarding this issue has been sent from the superintendent's office to parents and guardians. Because I am an advocate for the state, I have received numerous emails from districts around the state reaffirming to their families the district's policies and protections regarding recent developments concerning ICE activities. Protections, they state, by these districts are as follows. The district does not collect or maintain information to the immigration status of students or their families. The districts do not coordinate with ICE. The district does not share student records with ICE. The district does not allow ICE access into our schools without a criminal judicial warrant signed by a judge. The district only dismisses students to people authorized by parents and guardians. These districts state these policies to reaffirm to their families the district's unwavering commitment to the safety and well-being of all of their students. Information similar to these need to be shared with all parents who have children attending school. DESE is working with the Office of Refugees and Immigrants and is providing districts with guidance and information. Last Monday, January 27th, DESE provided all school districts with an overview of legal resources and guidance for immigrants in the Commonwealth to be shared with parents and guardians. Therefore, I am requesting the Medfield School Committee please address this issue by placing it on next month's agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, committee, I just so you folks know, I did send what Ms. Lear is talking about to all our administrators and front office staff, so they would be aware of that and our staff members. So we felt that it was important for the people on the front lines of this to have the information and to review the protocols. We made a decision not to send to families, just to our staff, and that's something we can take a look at. But we've made that notification already.
Any other public comment, either here or online?
Nobody online. Nobody's with public input, that is.
Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. So next up, we have the consent agenda. That is going to include the approval and retention of executive session minutes from January 9th, 2025, the approval of regular meeting minutes from January 9th, 2025, the MHS overnight trips final approval for the DECA state competition in Boston, Mass, February 27th through March 1st, 2025, the Massachusetts Association of Student Council annual conference in Hyannis, Mass, from March 5th through 7th, 2025, donations, $500 from the MHS PTO to be deposited to the MHS student activity account for the MHS Model UN Club, $4,999.50 from the Memorial PTO to be deposited to the Memorial School gift account for kindergarten and first grade field trip bus transportation. Do we have any edits, corrections, or want anything removed before we vote? Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You have to do roll call again because of Will. Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Good night, yes.
Leo Brem, yes.
Diana Frischella, yes.
All right, thank you. Okay. So onto new business. The strategic plan progress mid-year update is going to be tabled and moved until next meeting, February 13th. So then we're going to go a little out of order and move the Medfield policy review up next.
And Mary's here to.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for moving that. Kind of a theme we've had so far in this meeting, changes at the federal level have caused us to have to look at our Title IX regulations that we had changed, I think, a couple of years ago. And our attorneys have reached out to us and let us know that we need to revert back to what we've done in the past. So, Mary, I don't know if you want to add anything to kind of. Sure, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, so we had an update it came out in April 2024. We changed our policies this past summer to reflect the changes, but given the change that was just given by the U.S. District Court in Kentucky that made this an unconstitutional policy change that was recommended, we have all been recommended it's now unconstitutional to keep following that policy. The attorneys have recommended that we go back to our policy that was instituted in 2020. So the policy that is in there is a shorter policy with a procedure that follows, and that was what we put into place in 2020 for the school committee, and now recommended to move back to that policy in practice.
What are the significant?
There's more significant timelines. Some of the protected categories also within it. What constitutes sexual harassment is different within the 2020 versus 2020 policy. That's one of the biggest areas. The timelines themselves, the 2024 policy didn't have its strict timelines and guidelines in terms of that. It was more when you have reached this level of capacity within the procedure, you can move on. The kind of exact guidelines in terms of sharing information and the amount of time that people have to respond, what they are allowed to respond with, questions versus narratives, all of that is really the biggest.
So I think this will be a first reading, I believe, right? We'll have to do it first reading and then.
Okay. Okay. So nothing else on that right now then, right? Okay.
No. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay. So now canopy timeline. Okay, so now on to the Medfield High School canopy timeline discussion. Dr. Marsden, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, and I'm going to turn it over to Michael too as well. Michael and Byron are here to go over what Select Energy would like to do for a timeline and for you to think about the next month or so. And there's some action items that need to take place at the next meeting in February. So they're going to give you an overview of that now, and then we can talk about it. We'll put it on the agenda again in February and see what you folks think. Thank you.
School projects that we want to propose the pipeline of what it looks like. It is not for vote that would be
So Michael's going to be advancing the slides for you share. I wanted to introduce Norman Follow, who is also here with me tonight, and Brian Berg as well. And just for context, Brian is an executive vice president for Select and works with towns and customers all the way from initial meeting through installation. With Select for a long time and is the chair of the Select Board at Hockey as well too. Feel free to offer any everything you guys are just talking about. We talk about next. And Norman has joined us, and he also focuses on specifically municipalities and the development of solar within municipalities. Love to have you here with us tonight, and he was formerly the town manager, so I'm very familiar with town management. So with that, what brings us here today is an update and timeline on the high school cancer program. We have been at this specific project for a while. You may have seen trucks come in, do some engineering, do some scanning, and we also, as Michael had said, have been advancing with the Memorial School that's ready to go for install in June, and the building system is fully installed and waiting certificate approval, and then we go to our school. So this is part of the path. It's what we've been expecting to know from the school committee's perspective. Having a summer install is important, for traffic and parking. So that's where we are. So here's the timeline, and it may be a little. You can read it from there, but I'll give you the key items. Key items are that we are planning to mobilize in June, really as quickly as possible after the senior week. And we're looking at usage for the lot to enable access to the lot, while also starting and staging and beginning the construction process. Throughout the summer, we would be doing the foundation. We would then be erecting the canopies, and then opening up portions of the lot while we complete the electrical, and then have PTO by the end of the year. But the main construction would all be from the end of summer to the end of summer. There are some key considerations in terms of the timing. And to use we don't have lots of extra time. We either order the steel and that takes a certain amount of time. The agreements are already in place because it's the same agreements that we've used for Memorial in place. They need to be signed and go through that process. So the actual language is already in place. So we need, there's a commitment for the time of contract review. And then the school committee guidance or approval for us to work hand in hand with logistics with the school administration. And as the construction process goes through, with the aspects that we just need to coordinate on different things. in terms of the overall system size and the system update, as you know, the development process, the discovery process, and we've actually updated the system based on two things. One is the location of the easement and water retention area in the lot. So we've updated the foundation, we've got the plan around that. And the second thing is having gone through the permitting process, the planning board process with Memorial, and there's specific items that are really important to the town. And one of those is water management. And so having gone through the approval process with Memorial, we engineered that right into this system as well too. So that helps from an efficiency perspective. So here's really the big kind of updates and changes from the original design. There's a larger system, helps with the production, which also helps with the additional capital costs. We're looking at providing just over 70% of the high school usage of these cannons, which is in alignment with the town's energy policy, to try to generate as much energy as we can close to home. And behind the meter, we did relocate outside the water retention area. We've also enhanced water management features of the canopy and water infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure under the lot itself. We have a slightly extended conduit run as we're coming down further into the parking lot. Based on Memorial, we're actually using demos for the lighting, so that the town can adjust based on the seasons or the preference of the community, and sensitivity for lighting. And there's a significant CO2 benefit as well. CO2. So, next slide, and feel free to ask any questions if you have it. Otherwise,
Can you, I was going to rate, but what do you mean, I saw it twice, relocated outside of water retention area. Can you just describe that, what that means?
the northern portion of that lot, up closer to, the ball field and the media center for the football field, is where we had originally had that canopy located. But underneath that portion of the lot, there's where you can actually see those cars there in this image. There's actually a water retention area with pipes that run underneath that lot. And so, outside of that area, so we didn't disturb it.
It's pretty extensive.
We just move the canopy further down.
And what was that, like pointed out, or how did we figure that out?
How did we find that?
But yeah.
It was through the civil engineering part of the process. Part of our due diligence was the civil engineering, looking at the surveys and site plans. Also, we tried to identify exactly where it was.
Thank you.
So in terms of the overall economics, just briefly on this, we started when the LOI was signed at 16.4 cents. That was actually a couple of years ago, believe it or not, that we've been advancing with this. To incorporate the water management and the underground infrastructure, which are truly improvements for the key infrastructure here. We have additional engineering and a longer conduit run as well that we've incorporated. And again, thank you to Maurice and Maria on their review. We kind of help incorporate that, and then also help us think forward in terms of this specific design as well too. So they've been informing the process as we've been moving forward, which is great. The total install, PPA rate is 20.15 cents, which still generates a savings of about 1.1 to 1.2 million over the 25-year term. So strong economic record in town with additional infrastructure. And then next slide. Key items here. Okay. The key items here at this point for February and moving forward is, obviously approving a can allocation where it is now, the timely contract review. We're going to next step here is just to populate the exhibits and send it to where a school committee has their own council, their town has their council, and the select board. And then I have a recommendation for the select board to approve the procedure. And the immediate next steps are the signatures for the PTA and lease, and then we have a board of health meeting next week. We're on their agenda, I think, on Tuesday afternoon to review, and the planning board is going to be that approval, that's part of it. There's computer review, the engineering that they're going through, and then the planning board approval as well. So those are the key items, and that's the status of the project. And we're excited. It feels, not to move complete on the winter metaphor, but it feels like the cross-country skiing, you kind of have those tracks. Now having been done a couple of these here, I think we can hit the timeline, we've got the tracks, and we have the process now. So, I don't know. Any comments? Any questions?
So, Byron, so you expect to start the high school project before the memorial school project then?
They're both going to be starting early June.
Okay. Because you talked about the seniors when they leave, because that's all their parking, right? So when the seniors leave, and if you started then, that would be a couple of weeks earlier than what the kids would be out of Memorial.
Yeah, and plus or minus, we're going to try to mobilize here as fast as we can. What that's going to look like is an initial coming over here to from here.
No, that's why I kept doing it too. I couldn't hear either. So So yeah, we'll try to get everything staged quickly as we can, and probably do some of those senior spots. Okay.
When we actually start with the construction, there's fencing that goes, in line. We'll tape it off. There's a safety consideration, obviously, around that as well too.
So we could just work together during that, because I anticipate that typically during those weeks after graduation that our kids are in state tournaments at home on that field, and they use that with large crowds for boys and girls lacrosse especially. So we'll have to just kind of work around that a little bit. Okay.
You have to understand that our sports go extra into the playoffs every single
That's
year.
why our buses are so expensive.
We actually have
playoffs.
to get used to that. Yeah, I'm not sure if that have that in Hopkinton, but we had that here in Medfield. Yeah,
It is. It's a great problem to have.
I did have one question about slide 5 around the total savings.
Yeah.
Can you refresh the board's memory on that estimated total savings? Is that over the life, or is that?
That's over the life. That's over the 25-year term. So for a rooftop project, for an existing roof, typically it's a 20-year term. And for a canopy, it's a 25-year term.
Okay, and that's cost. That's cost. Cost minus production, or production minus cost. So that's the savings is after you pay for the array. That's
Yes.
the total savings.
Yeah, absolutely. In this case, we're financing the system ourselves. We're just selling the electricity to you over the term.
Gotcha.
And just for clarity, I think Blake is actually a 25-year term because it was a brand new roof. We were able to go a little bit longer with that term because we were putting it.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, that savings would be just for the high school. That 1.1 million is just for the high school.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
good for the high school.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we don't think it's going to be too disruptive for the last 2 weeks of school for everyone else.
That's what we got to work around. Yeah, I think.
And safely.
Yeah, that's what we have to definitely work around. Mm-hmm.
But if we don't start that, then we run into
School starting.
school starting. So we're sort of stuck on either end.
Yeah, I mean, with aggressive timeline, it's like when we did the turf field, the same thing. I mean, the day after the kids got out, they ripped that thing apart, and we got all done in time. And same thing with the boiler over at Wheelock. I mean, I think everyone, they're used to doing this on schools, right? So they know that they have that truncated timeline and try to get it done. So yeah, we're gonna have to be real careful because there's still a lot of people around these schools during during the summer. So for sure, yeah.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for
Appreciate
doing
it. Thank you.
it. Next time won't have them on the night of the public hearing.
All right, next up we have the draft
Thank you, too.
2026 school year calendar.
Thanks again. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Did you guys get a chance to look at the calendar, or do you want to go?
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. So in your packet was the draft calendar for 25-26. And we developed this based on, what we've done in the past, but also getting some feedback from parents, especially around the month of November. The month of November, this current year and the year before, I think was difficult because we had a lot of conferences and Veterans Day and Thanksgiving all around the same time. And then I think we had conferences on the same week as Veterans Day. So that was kind of problematic for parents. So what we did is move conferences later for elementary to the week before Thanksgiving and the week after Veterans Day. And we did not put a professional development day in the month of November. So we eliminated a release day there. So by contract, we have to have 6 professional development days. We do have that in the schedule. I will highlight that we do have 2 Jewish holidays this year. That doesn't always happen. Usually it's just one, but this is a year that we have 2 on school days. So that we're looking in September 23rd and October 2nd. And we do have a longer winter break than we've ever had, I think, in a long time, just the way that the holidays fall. So in December, we would be in school on December 22nd for a full day, half day on the 23rd, and then we would close the 24th. And instead of bringing students back on the 2nd on a Friday, we would bring students back on the 5th of January. Looking at surrounding districts, I think, and talking with my colleagues, everyone is taking that approach for those weeks. But we're open to whatever you would like us to look at. And then we looked at moving. We had our full day professional development, our design your learning, or digital learning day, whatever you want to call it, each year. We had that in December this year. We've actually moved that till April next year.
Back to April.
Was it April? No, I'm sorry, March 18th. March 18th, which falls right before conferences at the secondary level in the high school. We like Wednesdays for that because it kids have that day off. Teachers are here, and when it's bookmarking a weekend, it's not always great for either side. So I like to put it midweek. But I'm happy to answer any questions or any recommendations or things you'd like us to change or look at again before you voted. I think we've counted up the days. Everything's the way it should be. And
I was just going to say, I think that, and you just answered it sort of, like, I do hear a lot of feedback, like, why do we have these professional development days or like these in the middle of the week? I think there's a lot of ask to make them on a bookend Monday or Friday because people may want to do something, or if you're figuring out your work schedule, middle of the week can be hard. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about was just having the last day of school be the half day on Monday if we don't have any snow days. So we would be going, I think, to the 19th?
15th.
No, 15th.
15th, sorry. But the 15th is a half day.
It's half day.
Right. So people, like, that isn't right. Could we get rid of a half day somewhere else to just end on that Friday if there's no snow days?
We need the 180 days.
I got a better idea.
I bet I know where you're going.
Half day on like the Friday before Labor Day, or could you get rid of the half day on the day before Christmas Eve? Like, I guess, like, can you find that half day somewhere else? I know we need that.
So I'm just wondering so a half day counts as a full day.
Okay.
Yeah. So
then I think
you're swapping one for another.
Like, swap for the second or the, like, I just honestly, like, people will ask, like, there's no purpose. Like, no one's learning. Some people won't
going back, starting the week is a thing. Yeah,
yes,
I totally
like
understand.
Starting on that Monday for a half day.
I was wondering
Well, so to your point, we could move a different full day because a half day doesn't do anything, right? So a full day, but then you have one half day. We have one snow day, and you're back on Monday anyway.
I know, but I feel like snow days at least you can't predict. Like I think sending out a calendar that we already know that we're going to do a half day on Monday for the end of the year.
So what I'm wondering, and I don't want to interrupt it, but we're making the soup. There might be one or two other ingredients before. So like one ingredient is maybe move that half day. Leo, you said you had a different idea.
What's your idea?
So what ingredient are you thinking?
Yeah. How do we get 2 full weeks in, at the holiday break?
Oh, I don't want that.
Okay, time out. So this is getting, Michelle, I'm getting over, I mean, I get to be dramatic here.
Because then you would just send people, exactly, like you just send them.
And the last day becomes June 17th. Yeah. And then if
then you don't worry about the half day on the Monday.
well, no, but you worry about Juneteenth on Friday. So then if you have one snow day, then you have Juneteenth on Friday and you come back the following Monday. No one wants to be there
You do 2
at the end of
June.
June.
Till the
no one
18th.
wants to be there
So if you have
either
one
day.
Sunday, you're good. Yeah.
Where's
And
that?
I also think, like, just a suggestion for the February 10th early release half day, like, and I know it's a lot of people pull their kids on the 13th anyway before February vacation. People leave. Like, why wouldn't we do a half day ever on like a Friday before February vacation where people would actually?
It's not the kids I'm worried about on those days.
It's the staff.
We want to make sure all staff's here too.
Staff attendance is a global issue across.
Yes, but I mean, I sort of feel like they should, right? If it's a full day anyway, I would think they would be here till 3 o'clock or whenever they're normal.
They are because it's a full day for sure. Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying whether it's a full day or if it's a professional day, like.
Yeah, I think they're viewed differently.
I would wonder too if
I hear you.
I just think people are going to pull their kids, and I get a lot of questions.
Have a
Like people will
professional day
say,
that
"Why
day."
do we have a half day the week before February vacation?
Mhm.
If you're going to do it on a Tuesday, why aren't you doing it on the Friday?" Like that just comes up in conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
We want to.
I mean, I'll push back a little bit, and you could be the other communities that are in Metro West that have one every Wednesday. Like there are some communities that have a half day every single Wednesday, and we're not that. So I
And I
mean,
think that's good, but I do think there's predictability about that, which actually makes the planning easier for people who need to plan.
Fair.
Ours is difficult to household or one household.
Sure,
working
yeah,
there,
I see
just
that.
because there isn't the consistency. And I know I don't think either answer is perfect, but I am just saying like the inconsistency can be hard.
so if we did a consistent day, then at the elementary level, kids would miss that same thing every single Wednesday, right? So it's just
I know it's
You know.
that happens at the middle school now. Every time
the middle would happen too. The high school wouldn't because they rotate, but middle school is going to be changing their schedule at some point with probably a rotation. But
I was going to say that all those changes, I think, after we see how the change in start times, which don't forget starts this year,
sure does.
I think and I know the negotiation year starts. So I think it would be a strategic time for any schedule changes, as well as looking to eliminate a bunch of those half days, because frankly, I think it is not dual working family friendly at all. I hear about it constantly,
I do too.
every single time.
So then, what would be the option for professional
I
development?
think we want to. Well, I think we should talk about that. In that strategic way, right? Whatever that might be. Whether it's another day we negotiate in, whether it's the conferences become an extended day during using Zoom, because I think that is more convenient for others, and if it requires another time, another time where it's face to face, those arrangements are made in some manner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the conference. I could get that. That's good suggestions on that. I'm just thinking about professional development. We never, as you know, Leo, in schools never have enough time, right? That you can have people do this without paying them extra.
Yep.
Right. So if we add days, that's not free. If we do it over the summer, that's not free. So it's just the way to. I get it as. I mean, both my wife and I work. We went through it, so I get it.
I think the consistent days is an option. In Newton, it was every Tuesday. K to 8 was I'm not sure it was quite half, but it was definitely earlier, right? And so perhaps that is something we review and we adjust the schedule accordingly to adjust for that. Yeah. And I think it's going to require a committee. It's going to require work. But I think that we've proven that we can do that in this district and think creatively.
So I would this is always something that, kind of a history lesson. 12 years ago when I got here, the issue was from the committee, because everyone was telling them we get out way too late.
Oh, I know.
right? We get out way, so we don't get out late anymore, but we get out way too late. Like when I was coming from Rentham, I was out a week before you guys were. I had a week vacation before I started in Medfield, right? Because you guys were still in school. So I think they had a policy. Well, the policy was if Labor Day was on a certain day, you started after, right? So then when we came in here, I asked the committee to reconsider that and look at always starting before Labor Day, which is what we worked with the union on. So that got us a head start there. And then the day before Thanksgiving was always a day off. It was a full day off day before Thanksgiving, but it didn't count. So you lost another day there. So we made some changes to try to get it so that, because everybody wants to be back in September or in August. Lots of people don't want to be there in June, right? So try to make it on the front end of it and start a little earlier.
Yes, and I do think getting out early is nice. The other feedback I do hear is that people like getting out early when it's like almost like if we have no snow days, like going till the 18th is no big deal.
Right.
The problem is then just snow days.
Sure.
Because the reality is there are no camps that first week in June. When
True.
you can get them.
Yeah.
So it's people, right? There is that like delta. I think what happens is if you have 5 snow days and you already push another day late,
Right.
another week late, then you're at like June 30th. So, which we can't predict. But what about, I know this sounds very, are we required to give Good Friday off?
No.
I mean, I think people,
Religious holidays or not.
well, right, exactly. Like, because then you could get rid of that Monday, the 15th, and swap it with Good Friday potentially, and have people go to
So
school.
we do the Jewish holidays too, or
Well, I feel like Jewish. I feel strongly.
I'm just because that's what's going to happen, right?
I feel strongly that,
I think
but I feel strongly that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are more equivalent to saying like go to school on Christmas Day or Easter Sunday. Those are very different than Good Friday. We do not give all the Jewish holidays. There are significant
Correct.
ones that people do celebrate. So I feel like those are their, one of the, more important. Whereas I wouldn't suggest we go to school on Easter Sunday, or I wouldn't say go to school on Christmas Eve.
Right.
So I sort of.
There are some communities that are wrestling with that right now.
Sure,
And I think it's, I'll use the term, it's personal, but it's personal towards communities. And
it's personal to each person what holidays they wish to celebrate with their families.
You don't want to penalize like the student for that either.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure what that would cause is worth not having come back on a Monday. To be honest,
That's fair.
you know what I mean. I don't think that's worth it.
I think people who want to take it off will take it off.
I agree. But I have been at Good Friday services at both larger churches in this town, and like I could tell you, there is not, the church is not full, so it's not like everyone is at church.
But staff will take the day for sure. Yep, absolutely. There's no doubt about it, which is what districts that have gone down. So some districts have gone on the road. We're like, we're not doing any religious holidays anymore. We're done, right? And then all of a sudden they find out on those days they got no one to work in the buildings.
I think that's hard. I just think Good Friday is.
So I was looking because we got 2 emails last year about the calendar specifically, and one of the suggestions or the questions was, could we align the high school conferences with the elementary conferences so that there would be older kid options to help with childcare if necessary?
Oh, okay.
Yes, I do.
Phenomenal idea.
I do think having all the conferences.
Yeah.
So having elementary and high school on the same day.
Correct.
K to 12 conferences.
Yeah, well, that's a problem.
That would be hard. I
That's
don't
hard.
think you can do the middle school and the high school on the same day. Parking, logistics,
I mean, the amount of people
amount of
that have
people
4
that-
kids in this district.
yeah.
Yeah, it's convenient.
But
They may overlap with the kids. I know that. However, it goes back to many of them on Zoom. Like I can't remember the last.
There's a lot of them on Zoom.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think we've attended them all recently on Zoom.
We give the option, right? We give them the option, but there's a lot of people that come in, especially the secondary level.
I'm curious. I'm wondering what the percentage is on that. Around, I could see the elementary level for sure, but I don't think. Full disclosure, Tanya is the designated one for the Zoom meetings. However, and I'm pretty sure they're all Zoom. She's
and they limit you at middle school at least till 2. So even if you had 2 or 3 kids, and they're only
They open them up though. I mean, I went to 4.
well they do, but my point is that's because they open it up because they're not full. But if you had 2 or 3 kids, like you're really doing 2 for each.
I do wonder about like if you had kids in multiple
That's the issue,
buildings, right?
Especially
Multiple-
where our elementary is.
Yeah, I see that too. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, or maybe you give the ones with multiples in buildings the opportunity to register first for those slots.
You also do them for 2 days, so like you're I believe that you would have more than enough time to fit in your conferences over 2 days.
But so anyway, so that was a suggestion to try to alleviate and help out potentially, the working parent situation for elementary kids.
When I had elementary and middle, it felt like I had to do one or the other at the time.
Right.
And for the first time, I do have them both in the same school.
Yeah.
And that has been easier. So.
And then the other suggestion came actually from a teacher of another district. They said they tend to do a PD day on the first day back of the new year, and the kids come the following day, so that the teachers get to go back and kind of acclimate, and then the kids come back the next day instead of, and so like as families you would get that extra day, but it sounded like it was a little
They do that around holidays too.
okay. That was just, so again, I don't have a strong opinion on that personally, but I didn't know if when we go to negotiate with the teachers if that's something they would want, because it sounded like the re-entry was better for
Are
them.
you saying we wouldn't go back on August 27th? The teachers would do professional development day on August 27th, and the kids would come back on Thursday.
No, it's in December, right?
No, I was talking about
No, it's
January
December.
5th.
They do the PD.
Or January 5th, same thing.
Yeah.
So that is what happens at my son's school. They do all their full professional development days. They did it the Monday after Thanksgiving and the Monday after Christmas break.
Yeah.
Or
And I would
winter
say
break.
It doesn't help.
that two full
I
weeks
only care
parents
about
would
the
already have their kids
22nd
go
and the
back on Monday.
23rd.
Yeah, that's what. See, I was one of the ingredients I thought was like hot pepper or something. I was thinking more like paprika. Doesn't really change it; just looks the same. I was thinking about that. So
a cooking show.
not salt. But anyways, I was
putting the professional development days there.
no. The only I was a really bad
that's an
joke.
interesting approach to the PD days. Although I think you'll run into a very similar scenario where many of our, I don't know, like if we have,
So we have one full day of PD. The rest are all half days.
Right, it's only one
So
day.
it's only one day we're talking about.
it's just DLD.
The other ones are the ones before school starts. We have. So it's just doing DLD.
And would that, so I guess the next question would be like, do these half-day PD days, could they be combined into one? Is that a contract situation?
Contract is six release days.
Because again,
Because a half day counts as a full day. So if we-
I see what you're saying, yeah.
It would
Yeah.
actually,
Mhm.
we could have teachers come back on January 2nd, and they could do that PD on Friday. And
I'm
then
sure that'll go really well.
So
I thought so.
so that was my paprika,
That
and
was
I will
Diana
stop at that.
Priscilla.
That's what I was wondering.
Sheila.
I was surprised
That'll go
this
really
year
well.
that
I'll give you
January.
your number and your email.
That was Diana.
Diana.
Just to be, just
I
to
was
be very
I was
clear.
surprised this year when I first saw it. You're going back the first day, January 2nd and 3rd, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. So that was the only other way you get the day is you do. I know other districts
So let
are.
me
Is
just
that
give you-
not going to be popular?
give you a
at all?
scenario
They would
that
only
happened
do
with.
one day.
So there's a reason why we have DLD in March, April. We had December this year. Okay, because they planned for months and months and months for that, and this happened twice now. A snowstorm comes, we have to cancel the whole thing.
Yeah, I
So
do.
that has happened, and I would want to do that to them again because they worked really hard to get that up and running. They have people from other districts coming, and then it snows, and then we can't do anything. So back to your Good Friday suggestion. The year it happened, we suggested that we could do a half PD day on Good Friday, in which, because of my experience with trying to change the graduation time with the local churches, I went and met with the local clergy on that to say, this is not going to be something we're going to do with kids. It's just a half day that we have staff come in because this is what happened. And then they kind of gave their blessing and we did it, right? Because when we tried to change graduation to earlier in the morning because it was 700 degrees on that turf, it was met with, are you kidding me? It's Sunday, which is another reason why we changed it to Saturday. So there's just there's a lot of layers to this that we've been through, and I'm happy to go through them again, but I think we just need to kind of think about the operational and what it looks like beyond this room and the reaction that people have. That's
so
all.
I think what we have right now then is we get a lot of feedback on the calendar,
Yeah.
right? We get to talk about it once a year. I mean, we can tell them throughout the year, but we get to do it once a year. It doesn't sound like we're ready to vote on it right now, but if we have specific asks or action items that we want
Yeah.
Jeff to go look
What would
at,
you like
let's
me to
figure
do?
that out.
The one ask that I think we should look at is just that half day Monday on the 15th of June.
On the 15th?
Yeah, I just
I
think
don't care about it personally. I think we're gonna get. If we do that, we're gonna
So
end up
what-
with a
what would you
blizzard
like me to look at
kicks
that?
us,
Like,
like
I'm just-
5 days out. We're gonna end up with a blizzard that
When
like.
did we move it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
To the 3rd.
I think
To
what
the
happen.
Friday.
I think what happens is you'll get the camps that start early, and people pull their kids regardless.
I don't think there's any
So that used to happen here.
There-
Again,
I
that's so
sent
when
a
I
kid
first
to
got here,
last
what I
year.
was told
You just have
that
to look.
kids missed the
Very
last
few.
4 days of
Not
school
enough
because they were at
people.
camp.
Because they're
The
at
parents
camp.
paid for camp. The
It's
kids
like
would miss
camp.
the last 3 or 4 days of school. That's what used to happen here all the time. They started after Labor Day.
And in some cultures, it's huge. It's a huge piece, where it's a big deal, and they're off to Canada or they're off to someplace.
All right, so ask one is potentially.
Okay, look at the half day.
Okay, what else?
Yeah, sleepaway camp.
The potential for the high school and the elementary school to be aligned for conferences.
Yeah.
What else, guys? What other action items are requested?
So I guess the only other thing I love the idea to explore, obviously, query the principles about possibly
Wednesday.
aligning the conference days. I mean, I thought that was a real.
Yeah.
That would definitely
I like
be
that.
helpful if it's possible. But I obviously getting the feedback obviously about what snafus would
Yep.
hit. Yeah.
I know that it will not be favorable with the teachers, but I do think parents would push for these random half days for professional development on Mondays or Fridays. But
I think that's unfortunately, that's like some healthy friction
yeah.
that exists because the
Yeah.
PDs,
Yeah, I mean, they
that's
also don't want it those days, right? I get it. I'm just saying.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, whoever said it earlier, that we pride ourselves in our education and some of it is the
So-
educators.
Mondays and Fridays, but we're looking also at one consistent day every time. Because that came up too. So make it on Tuesday or Thursday or Wednesday or
I
whatever.
feel like I get why alternating is good for the elementary school schedule. I'm not a huge fan of having it if the way we do our classes that kids who have whatever on Tuesdays, like, and we always do it on Tuesday, and they're always missing 6 art classes or 6 gym classes.
But it does put a feeder in for thought on the idea of any kind of rotating possibility in the schedule.
Yeah, but that's harder for elementary.
Which really isn't possible for elementary, but it is for obviously high school can do
Middle
it. But
school, I think, should rotate, but
And elementary, though, it's a little easier to flex.
it is.
To swap a class, flip a morning to an afternoon, once or twice.
Will, do you have any
Says
other
the
thoughts on
business
the
director.
calendar? Well,
Someone takes care of that, right?
I'm good. I think you guys covered that stuff. I think, I don't know how fast we talked about, but the teacher, he's back. I don't know if the winter break one works, but then after Thanksgiving, that's what did you say? We only have one full day TV in March.
Right.
No, right? That's
Right.
one.
Yeah.
Doesn't get snowed out.
Right.
Is that what we did for March, or what, instead of booking,
Yes,
Yeah.
because we've had it. We did have it once in the like January. I think it was January. We did it on MLK weekend. I think that was the weekend that it snowed, and we had to miss it on that Tuesday or the Friday before, one or the other. And that was
yeah.
yeah.
Was, that makes sense, but yeah, I vote with Diana, but,
you say that again, Will?
you cut out.
I said, I vote with Diana for Good Friday if we can go that Monday.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that would be worth exploring.
Pushback.
Yeah, I
How
think
many
this
days do
is.
teachers get for personal days?
I mean, I'm sorry. What?
How many personal days do teachers get where they
Right now.
Okay, any other asks before we move on to the next item? Okay. Are there any other items since posting on January 28th?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Moving on to old business. We've got the mobile phone social media task force update.
Yeah, what I forget, I think, and Will, keep me honest, I think our meeting with that task force was after the last school committee meeting, right? So we haven't,
I believe so.
updated anybody. Each of us.
I think last time you guys hadn't had a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll speak. I didn't prepare remarks. I think we had the second meeting. You had Dr. Jill, and I forget Dr. Jill's last
Walsh.
name. Dr. Jill Walsh. I thought she was excellent. I had missed the prior one. I think the conversation really did center, and coincidentally with what the recent guidance we've gotten from the state, it centered around community norms, policy, and instruction. She did it in a very free-flowing way, but it just seemed so obvious being part of the group that that's where we want to focus. Again, Will, you can weigh in. The community norms seems to be the loudest, where people are. There's a lot of feedback, and community norms are.
What is community norm? What do you?
Yeah, there's actually, you may even because there was a definition of it in the guide.
In the guideline. Yeah, really just taking a look at what we're going to set as rules, so to speak, as a community. Like, for instance, we're not going to have cell phones until 8th grade. We're not going to have cell phones until 9th.
Community as in the town.
The town, right.
Like we're setting, obviously people can do whatever they want. Okay, I wasn't sure if community at school.
No, it's everybody.
Everywhere. Okay.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of energy from the group.
Definitely.
Saying, hey, that really stinks when, I'm trying to do wait until 8th. And this one goes over there and doesn't. And, there's a lot out there.
I think what the inference was, at least on the worst, I missed the second one as well, but I think the inference is that the schools can support the norms, which we do, like, as much as possible, and as we, moving towards that. It's not easy, to be the only one, and but I have seen a shift in the community. I've seen a real shift between 8th and 6th, where it's a little less common to see the phone than it was in 8th. So
it's a really good acknowledgement that it's not just a school issue. It's not just the 6 hours, right? Which I thought was great.
It is, because part of it isn't the school. It's like the rest of the day. Although I still am an advocate for the middle school should have put your phone in a
yonder pouch.
The pouches.
Pouch as well. Because it is not as much of an issue, but it is an issue. They text and use their phones all day at the middle school too.
Yeah, I did.
The kids who have them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I am looking at the notes. One thing that I think Dr. Jill Walsh and Dr. Marsden can correct me. She said her thought around implementing policy has shifted a little more because the morale of the teachers for those that have more stricter policies is. I don't want to misquote the percentage, but it was.
Well, I pushed back on it a little bit.
Yeah, you challenged the data.
I challenged the data.
Morale is lower for the teachers who are strict.
Well, I'll frame it in a way which exactly how she said it is after speaking with the MTA.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Then I kind of pushed back a little bit and said, well, I don't know if that that might be their data, but I read off the data from Medfield High School, and it was completely opposite of what the MTA data was. So, and again, it's an N1, right? It's just in Medfield High School, but the teachers here, and they just had it on their faculty meeting this week. They had a whole discussion on it and shared the data. The teachers here think that it's accomplishing what it's set out to accomplish the way we're doing it.
Which is great. And we're only solving for Medfield.
Right.
So that's the data that's more important.
And that was an interesting way, because that at least what she said from the MTA, and that was the expert, she said those that are not policing improves the relationship with their students.
Right.
Because
but it also could be in schools where there is no policing. So like if you're a teacher going against what your general school guidelines are, I could imagine that's harder than if it's sort of
which was the issue we had last year.
Yeah,
it was inconsistent last year as far as what the expectations were, and some were doing it, some weren't. It became, maybe if you lived it, it was some that it became difficult for the teachers. So that's why we had that conversation with Summer.
There's a strong implementation and leadership issue. There's a building level.
I could, yes. I'm happy to see
where we strategically with Dr. Marsden and his team created that structure, like we discussed last summer. We discussed that structure of support from us down, right? And that doesn't get replicated in other districts 100%, not even 50%. You're on the school committee list.
So yeah, a couple others, and sorry, one thing I wrote that I thought was interesting, if you are deciding to change like the rules even in home norms, is be able to explain it in a way that really does make sense, the why to the teens, because if you can explain the why, an example they gave, like letting the kids know that these things are designed the algorithms to drive some of the addiction. And if you see that and you think like that, it's because I struggle with my kids. I'm like, hey, we don't want them in the room, and this is why. But what I would say, like, I think about like those community norms. It's like, hey, it would be really helpful to have more best practices. How can I have that conversation with my kid?
Well, that's
right.
curious.
And I struggled to find it. Like,
A question for the committee that you have, is that something that has been discussed as incorporating into the curriculum around, I think the term is knowing your algo. I'm not sure if that's knowing your algorithm, what the machine learning is telling you about yourself from your phone and how your use is.
Well, now it seems like it doesn't matter what your usage, just like pushes you some nice
But
content.
are students aware about just awareness level? Because I did hear about a group of fourth graders in my district who have strategically been self-reflecting. Apparently, the story was told from the principal, and have been putting it away. They've been looking at their usage time. They're policing themselves, self-policing, I guess.
Right.
And I was like, wait, excuse me? Like, I had to do a double think. You're seriously thinking they're looking at their own usage, and they have been. And so, I'm sure that's an anomaly, but because it's not, my kids aren't doing that. But I'm wondering, is that because of awareness that was brought to their attention? I haven't investigated it. And is that something that, I don't know, some exploration in some sort of curriculum initiative of some kind? So that's my only question.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Will, do you have any comments? I don't want to take too much.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, Dr. Bill off was great. I got confused, I guess, putting Dr. Martin on your head, but the teacher morale and then the weekend purpose of the shoe thing, right? That was what was offered to the MTA.
Yes.
That the
Yes.
shoe things don't affect anything. They clearly do. I mean, I'll speak for me, like as a teacher, it helps if it doesn't have a problem.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, her premise was because they can see it. The data says just because you can see it, it causes you to think about it.
Yeah.
That's
Right. But anyway, I thought it was good. The community norm stuff back. It seems like excited about that. Obviously, people are volunteering for this committee probably because they have concerns about it. So we'll see what we can do as a school and a community to help our kids with that problem they have with that addiction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, and just one other one. I know this is a little much, but it's an interesting topic. It was really interesting to me, and we just did it right here. As soon as we start talking about changing policies in the high school, a lot of calories go into that conversation, and I think the room really kind of started to think about if we put more energy into changing the habits of the younger kids,
Yes.
and they kind of the ones that have it today are kind of grandfathered in, it might be more productive for how we're all trying to work, because immedially there's I sense some tension. Hey, this one's working.
Oh, we do it right.
And it really smart. Like, it's also like little kids, iPads, screen time, but then going into Dale, I think, is when the problem starts.
Yeah.
The kids who get phones in 4th and 5th grade, the kids who don't. And I think that's where the education piece probably needs to start.
Yeah.
Agreed. So, and then the only other part is just, I wonder what's next. Maybe do they start thinking about breaking up into groups and studying each of those topics?
How many, just out of curiosity, how many people are on the committee? Like, how many parents? Or
12?
12 or 13 anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so we had some drop off from people who.
Yeah.
Well, we sent out the survey, right? Asking people their commitment level.
13.
Yeah.
And I think there was, one of the options was basically like 5 or 6 meetings. And I want to say it was like 12 or 13 were able to commit to 5 or 6 meetings. And then the other people either could commit or they filled out like, I'd be more interested in being involved in like subcommittee type work or small focus groups.
Yeah. So I'm glad that's what happens.
Right. Yes.
So we should talk about that. If he was to break them up, there's 5 or 6, we got another email, but they could have a virtual group and they could all say, hey, we want to meet.
Yeah.
In that structure we did with SEL, where it was an in-person meeting, and then the groups, once they broke up into groups, they met on their own and come back. They can be a part of that as well. I mean, they they could
So, but it was good. Like it's a big topic.
It's
We
a
all
big
know that.
topic. I guess I just, right, I think at some point, you don't want to still be having, in 3 years from now, we're still just talking about it,
I agree.
right? Like
I couldn't agree. Well,
right? So I feel like sometimes you could talk about this topic for the rest of time, and I just, right, at some point we'll have to say,
That's
like,
that's
we
why
need to make decisions and just
I think
try it.
hopefully there's going to be some action items that come out.
Come out of the group.
yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
we are talking. I think we'll be able to update you next time.
Yeah, and
Like,
I'm not saying- I
we're
don't think-
aligned
yeah,
1,000.
I don't think the 2 meetings so far, but
No,
I'm
no,
saying I
we
could
are
see this
definitely
being like,
aligned.
we'll just go on.
Okay, on to school building committee update. So this SBC hasn't met since we've met last. So we have a meeting next week on February 5th. It's at 7:00 in the public safety building. If anybody would like to attend. Do you guys have anything to add on that?
Oh, we had a call with MSBA since our last meeting.
Okay.
And talked a little bit about what we can do to accelerate the process, and do we have to wait until after April 1st and then use those timelines that they put out there, like for instance 90 days after April 1st, 170 days after April 1st, and basically they said to us they would accept any documents that we have complete after April 1st, so that it may not accelerate the process, so to speak, getting in front of the board, but we don't have to wait until every single milestone. We can start submitting things right away, which is great.
Right. The only thing they said is we can't do anything before April 1st.
Correct.
But after April 1st, the minute that portal opens for us, if we have all of the documents ready to go, they're in, and they do say they review them as they come in. So if we know we're in competition with somebody else, you know what I mean? It's their first time. Try to get
I
them
thought we
ahead.
were already accepted.
Yeah, but this is for the phases through the feasibility process.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes. And then this funding comes from the state of Massachusetts.
Correct.
Correct.
So we're not in jeopardy because of federal funds.
Whenever you buy anything at the store, 1 cent of your tax, that 6%, 6.2% tax, goes to this fund.
Okay.
So
that's
yeah,
not-
it's
okay,
all
that's-
that. Yeah.
And then I feel like there doesn't seem a lot of opposition to the school building this time. I feel like it's been pretty quiet.
Only just begun.
Well, I
Oh, wait.
I know, but
You
I
just
wonder,
hold
like,
on.
I sort of feel like people are now just want a new school somewhere.
Oh, sure.
Is
I think
feeling
the fight. I think the fight. I think that the maybe fight's not the word. I think the divisiveness will come when we have monetary numbers attached to a new build versus a renovation.
Okay, so because right now I feel like it's not
That is when I think people will have much stronger opinions.
okay, and that's I guess I didn't even realize we were talking about a renovation. I just thought we were at a new build.
Always an option.
Yeah, we have to go through that process.
Got it.
Option, yep.
Yeah.
You have
Okay.
to show that because someone will always say,
Yeah.
why don't we just renovate it?
Yeah. So next Wednesday, 7:00 in public safety will be the next SBC meeting.
Perfect.
Okay. So community engagement and communication. Do people have updates on that? I went to the Dale Street PTO. They were prepping for Kids Night Out. They had 4th grade last week. I think they have 5th grade this week. They're bringing in some science-based activities via the Acton Children's Museum, which Memorial also has done for the past couple of years. So those are always very well received at Memorial. So I was personally excited for them to come to Dale. Yeah, it was a good meeting overall. So
Great. I don't have much.
okay, nothing else there. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I'm not sure if it's community because we went to his Dr. Marston's superintendent.
Yeah, superintendent.
And actually, I thank you for encouraging us.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't gone in a while, but it was. I thought it was great. Like just hearing.
Really good group.
Yeah.
I don't know if that falls in that category or not.
Yeah, I think so.
So next one is in March.
Okay.
I went in February, but next one is in March, and we'll probably have an update. We did the last meeting we had, Jamie Callahan, one of our K-8 reading person, director, came and did a whole presentation on the science of reading, which was great.
Yeah, that's well
Did
done.
a really, really good presentation and answered questions. Then we went through some of the budget materials and things like that. So good group, and always a lot of great questions and really engaged parents. So
Yeah.
it's great.
Okay. Any informational items? Maybe you have any updates for us?
Oh, DECA? That they already had it? What was your? Were you in it? Oh, okay. Did you hear about any cool projects? Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Kids love it.
Yeah.
Kids really love it.
Yeah. Okay, so future agenda items, we'll do the strategic plan progress mid-year update at our next meeting.
Yes.
And then the MTSS presentation with the graduation requirement competency determination in March.
Yes.
Multi-tiered systems of support.
So Mary will do that. She and Christine. She and Christine have been working hard on that the last about a year and a half now, and they've had a committee that's worked really well together, and they will do their presentation and roll that out for us.
Okay.
Also part of our strategic plan. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's good. And the competency determination, graduation requirements. That's something that you guys are gonna have to vote on. Thanks to the voters. So we'll have more discussion next meeting, and then certainly in March. But we'll put together some proposals for you to take a look at and see what you think.
Okay. Will, do you have anything you want to add about anything?
I'm good.
Okay.
Get well. Feel better, Will.
Yeah, feel better. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Oh, wait.
Roll call. Yeah, Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tim Knight, yes.
Neil Brim, yes.
Diana Marcella, yes.
Will Horn, yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.